The rifle may be called Smle, but if you were to be hit by this rifle, it would sure stink indeed. A standard issued rifle was needed during the Boer Wars with the Lee Metford. It was a breech loading only rifle against the stripper clip fed Mausers that the Boers got from the Germans. And the cavalry was at a disadvantage with the cavalry carbines, which means they were shorter, meaning less range, especially from the Metford, so a new rifle, a standard short magazine rifle, was needed to modernise and centralise the rifles for all troops across the British Empire, the SMLE. The Lee Enfield rifle was derived from the earlier Lee Metford rifle, a mechanically similar black powdered rifle, which combined James Parrisley's rear-locking bolt system that had a barrel-featuring rifle designed by William Ellis Metford. The Lee action caught the striker on the closing stroke of the bolt, making the initial opening much faster and easier compared to the cock and open of the Mauser Gewehr 98 design. The bolt had a relatively short bolt throw, and the features rear-mounted lugs on the operating handle placed the bolt knobs just rearward of the trigger at a much more favourable ergonomic position closer to the operator's hand. The action features a helical locking surface. The technical term is the interrupted treading. This means that the final headspace is not achieved until the bolt handle is turned down all the way. The British probably used the helical locking lugs in order for chambering imperfect or dirty rounds, and that the closing cam action is disturbed over the entire mating face of both bolt and receiver lugs. This is one reason why the bolt closure feels so smooth and that anyone can do the mad minute. The rifle was also equipped with a detachable steel sheet 10 round double column magazine, a very modern development for today, especially with everyone going around with 8, say the Lebel, or 5, for everyone else basically. Originally, the concept of a detachable magazine was opposed by some British Army circles, as some feared that the private soldier might be likely to lose the magazine during field campaigns. Earlier models of the Lee Metford and the Lee Enfield rifles even used short lengths of chains to secure the magazine to the rifle. The Lee Enfield bolt action and the 10 round magazine capacity enabled a well-trained rifleman to perform the mad minute, firing 20 to 30 aimed rounds in 60 seconds, making the Lee Enfield the fastest military bolt action rifle of today, and even still today maybe. The current world record for aimed bolt action rifle was set in 1914 by musketry instructor of the British Army, Sergeant Instructor Smle, who placed 38 targets within a 12-inch wide target at 300 yards in 1 minute. Some straight pull bolt action rifles were thought to be faster than the Lee Enfield, but the lack of simplicity, reliability and the generous magazine capacity of the Lee Enfield rifle proved superior. Several First World War accounts tell the British troops repelling German attackers, who subsequently reported that they had been encountered by machine guns, when in fact the simplest Several First World War accounts tell the British troops repelling German attackers, who subsequently reported that they had been encountered by machine guns, when the fact was simply a group of well-trained British riflemen armed with the Mark III. The Lee Enfield was adapted to fire the 303 British service cartridge, a rim-high-powered rifle cartridge. Experiments with smokeless powder in the existing Lee Metford chambered rifle seemed to be at first a simple upgrade, but the greater heat and pressure generated by the new smokeless powder wore away the shallow rounded Metford rifling after approximately 600 rounds, replacing this with the new square-shaped rifling system designed by the Royal Small Arms Factory. Enfield solved the problem, and the Lee Enfield Mark 1, 2 and 3 were born. The most iconic Lee Enfield rifle was the SMLE Mark III. The small magazine Lee Enfield Mark III was introduced on the 26th of January 1907, along with the pattern 1907 or the P07 sword bayonet, and featured a simplified rear sight arrangement and a fixed rather than the bolt head mounted sliding charger guide. The design of the hand guards and the magazines were also improved, with more grooves and more flexible ergonomics, and the chamber was also adapted for the new Mark VII high-velocity Spitzer 303 ammunition. Many early models such as the magazine Lee Enfield, which is the MLE, and the magazine Lee Metford, the MLM, and the SMLE type were upgraded to the Mark III standard. These were designated the Mark VI cont, with a variety of Arisaki denoting subtypes. During the First World War, the SMLE Mark III was found to be too complicated to manufacture, and SMLE Mark III rifle cost to the British government was about £3, and deemed to be outstripping supply, so in late 1915 the Mark III Star was introduced. The most prominent change was the deletion of the magazine cut-off mechanism, which when engaged permits the feeding and extraction of single cartridges, only keeping the cartridges in the magazine in reserve, and a long-range volley sight. The windage adjustment rear sight was also dispensed with since you're fighting trench warfare, meaning that you don't need to take longer shots, only snipers would have the windage sight left, and the cocking piece was also changed from a round knob to a serrated slab. Rifles with some or all of these features are present and are Rifles with some or all of these features present are found, as the changes were employed by different times in different factories as a stock of existing parts were used. The magazine cutoff was reinstated after the First World War had ended, and was not entirely dispensed with until manufacturing in 1933, and even today some cutoff remained after the rifle was equipped in 1960. In total, over 16 million Lee Enfields had been produced in several factories on different continents. When production in Britain shut down in 1956 at the Royal Ordnance Factory, or the RAF Franz-Acheli in Liverpool after the factory had been plagued with industrial unrest, the machinery from the RAF Franz-Acheli was sold to the Pakistan Ordnance Factories, or the POF, in Rawalpindi, where the production and repair of the No. 4 Mark rifles was still continued. Also contributing to the total number of SMLEs was the rifle factory in Isapur, or the RAF, at Isapur in India, which had continued the production of SMLE both in the 303 and the 7.62 by 55mm NATO round until the 1980s, and it was still manufacturing sporting rifles based on the SMLE Mark III action, chambering the 315 caliber cartridge. The Birmingham Small Arms Company factory near Shirley near Birmingham, as well as the FAS Lightlow in Australia, who finally discontinued production of the SMLE Mark III Star, with a final machinery proving to be a batch of 1,000 rifles in early 1956, using 1953 dated receivers. During the First World War alone, 3.8 million SMLE rifles were produced in the UK, the RFA, the Enfield, BSA and the LSA. And that's the SMLE, but of course the British is an imperial empire, and wherever the SMLE goes, the troops go, from the deserts of Arabia to the jungles of Burma, and even the small stature of most Asian peoples during 1914 and 1963, where they had famines and of course malnutrition and such. But let's run down some of the Mark III and the Mark IV derivatives, and even go into some experimental and even news weapons of World War I and World War II, because that's basically it. So we have the muskets and shotgun versions, which are actually interesting. We have the L94A1, which is a sniper rifle. We have the jungle carbine used from Malaysia and the Pacific War during World War II, which is the rifle number 6 Mark I. We also have, the Least Commando carbine, which is a suppressed rifle, kind of like the Welrod. We also have the Charleston automatic rifles, which were kind of like the New Zealand type things that they were going on with. Kind of saw service in World War II, but was like the Johnson rifle. It didn't work out too well, but it still saw a little bit of service. We have the Eskins automatic rifle, which was a numerous attempt for the conversion of the Lee Enfield to an automatic rifle, of course. We have the Howard Francis carbine, which was a very short 6x63 25mm Mauser cartridge, and was probably used during World War I, especially with a lot of Germans and not a lot of supplies from England. It could be very easy to, get back some ammo. We also have the very famous Hull rifle from Battlefield 1, which was a steampunk looking semi-automatic rifle that would actually chamber the bullet for you. So in essence it is kind of automatic, but more of a semi-automatic kind of configuration going on. And we have the Rada automatic rifle, which was in full auto only, and was in South Africa. The rider device could be installed straight away without any use of tools, kind of like the Pedersen device. So that's interesting to see. We also have the Isapur, the 2A and the 2A1, which is an Indian carbine derivative of the Mark III Star. We also have the Rawalpindi, which is the Pakistani version, and we also have the Enfield and the Sabaccord, the BSA, the LSA Core, the London Small Arms Company, Lakes Low Factory in Australia, and we also have Eport and Singapore, and that's pretty much it. So it's served with every country on the continent, and it is still used today, and even in police guard and even some traditional, the mountaineer, not the Canadian Mounties, the Canadian Mountie rifles even use some of them today, and even some are still in collectors markets up to this day. And of course Israel during their war against most of their enemies in the Middle East. And yeah, that's basically a long legend, and even a Turkish one during World War I, captured enemy ones, which was a conversion of the British SMLE. But that's basically it. And let's see now. We do our best part of the thing yet, so we're gonna run down the countries. Best part of the best part of the episode. We run down all the countries. I'm already seeing Bangladesh here, so it's part of the Indian subcontinent, but it could still be news because they were using it as police forces and during the 1970 war against Pakistan. So even as their own countries, they could still come on, especially with the East Sapor. So it doesn't matter to me. So Afghanistan, Australia, Bangladesh, your boy Barbados, Belgium, post-World War II, and even in some Canadian distinctions. And they were used by the Belgians during the Korean War until 1952. Burma, British Hong Kong, Balur, which is Brunei, Cameroon, of course, your boy Canada, China, well, when they had concessions in China, the Republic of China, when World War II happened and, the split, so it's kind of Communist China and the Republic of China, which is now today the Republic of Taiwan, Czechoslovakia during World War II, the Cameroons, the Congo Calisia, I think, Denmark during World War II, because you need rifles and Denmark was supposed to be a neutral nation. We got Egypt, of course, the Falkland Islands, Fiji, Finland during the Finnish Civil War and World War II. The French, of course, mostly Foreign Legion troops, and during World War II with the French resistance, but they still had their label. Nazi Germany, got to snag up all those martyrs that were found, and even news with the Volkssturm, which was the citizen army group that was supposed to defend Germany to the last man. Of course, with the Hellenica, we have Greece, well, news in the Hellenica armed forces during World War I and World War II, and of course post-World War period when, they were fighting communist partisans. And of course, we have Grenada, Guatemala, we have Hong Kong, which became independent and a city-state in China. We got Iceland, which is one of the Icelandic Coast Guards. We got the British Raj, which includes India and all the other countries we should probably see on the list. India post-independence, Indonesia, Italy post-World War II, Italian Navy and Italian Army, the Kingdom of Iraq. You got your boy Ireland, you got your boy Israel during, I would say First World War, Israeli Corps, Second World War, Israeli Jewish resistance, and of course, after World War II with all the wars against Israel. They have Jamaica, and it's still news by Jamaica today with cadet forces and cadet stuff like that. Mostly as a cadet ritual kind of thing, just there for the fancy show. But you got Japan captured by the British Army during World War II. And interesting fact, the Arisaka was actually used by the British Marines because the SMLE was in such high demand in Europe on the Western Front that the Navy just had to settle for Arisaka. So, Japan, the British just returning a favour to Japan. Of course, we got Jordan, we got Tanganyika, and it was used by the police force. And I think Cantaniga is actually a place in Africa. You got Kenya, you got Kiribati, you got Luxembourg during the detachments of the Korean War, actually. And you got Madagascar, which is actually supposed to be part of France. I'm not really liking this list so far. We got Malaysia, the British state of Malta, we got Mongolia, interesting. We got Myanmar, Nepal. Wait, hold on. Mongolia. It has the communist flag, so maybe Lend-Lease. So we might see the Soviet Union here. Play Soviet music, please. We got the Netherlands. We got your boy New Zealand. We got Nigeria, and it was used by a Nigerian regiment, or the British West African Rifles, which is the Burr or something like that. I can't remember, but used by Nigeria, used by Norway during World War II and Allied airdrops and parachuters. And of course you got Oman, you got the Ottoman Empire captured rifles and reverse engineered weapons. We got Pakistan, which is part of the British Raj and was actually used in 1970 and stuff like that. We got Papua New Guinea after the occupation with the Australians. We got Poland, used by the Polish Exile Army, and even in World War I actually with the Polish legions, but the Poles were mostly with the French Foreign Legion, so that's an interesting one. You got Portugal, the Portugal Expeditionary Force during the First World War. We got Qatar, we got Rhodesia. Rhodesia never dies until it actually dies and becomes Zimbabwe. We got Rwanda, which was actually part of German South German East Africa, but actually came on the British protectorate status after World War One. St Kitts and Nevis. You've got Singapore, which is a city-state until the 1960s, and still used by security armed forces and the police command to this day, actually. Mostly as a, what do you call it, a parade type weapon, mostly now. So you got the Somali Islands, you got the Union of South Africa, the Republic of South Africa, the apartheid one, and you got the South Africa, the new one with Nelson Mandela. So that's an interesting one. Why did they have two different flags? Why you can't just say like British South Africa or apartheid South Africa? But you know, as you do. South Korea. Let's hypothesize. Maybe during the Korean War, at least during the Korean War, or maybe British troops in Korea. Who knows? Some of these are like, I think when you name a country, it's supposed to go with the country and not the British fighting in the country. So the country itself is supposed to use the weapon. So that's interesting. South Yemen, which was taken from the Ottoman Empire, and we got Sri Lanka, part of Creole, and of course it was succeeded by India, and most of them were coming from India. Like most of the SMLEs were made and came from India, so that's a nice one as well. We got Tanganyika, which is actually part of German East Africa again, with the Battle of Tanganyika. Shameless plug, but yeah, Tanzania. We got Tibet. That's an interesting one. I don't think the British held Tibet like that, but I guess against the Chinese communist invasion of Tibet in the 1950s. That's an interesting one. Tibet. That's pretty interesting. We got Thailand before World War One and during the 1920s, when the king had received a shipment of 10,000 rifles from the British. It was supposed to be part of the 1919 offensive, and Siam, which is now Thailand, had actually played a small role but still sent troops to the Western Front. So you might see like one-off episodes with like latecomers or something like 1917, 1918, people now coming into the war. But China is a different story because it was there from the beginning, but it never sent. China is an interesting one, but we got Tonga, Trinidad and Tobago, and still today mostly used by the cadet force again. A lot of Caribbean countries just use it as a parade type or training military type thing. We got Turkey, which converted Ottoman captured rifles. We got Uganda, the protectorate of Uganda. I'm not going to do the meme, it's already dead. We got the United Kingdom, we got the United States of America, which was used by the AEF before they actually got their weapons. Of course, Americans were using British and French weapons before they got to actually fight with their own weapons. And even in World War II, was still under Lend-Lease because the British had, the Americans had to actually start their weapon manufacturing because the Americans didn't want to go to war. So it's not like they have a stockpile of weapons. Well, they do, but they don't have enough, and they did not anticipate the scale of the war, even though it's a world war. But yeah, they don't really anticipate that, and we'll need to get some rifles before they get theirs coming in. We got Vantunu, we got South Vietnam, and of course we got Vietnam. So I don't know, the British forces fighting in South Vietnam and some Lend-Lease, and I guess Vietnam captured the rest when it took over finally in 1975. And that's pretty much it. The British weapon, the weapon of choice, the Imperial rifle, the last Imperial rifle, the SMLE. It sure does stink. Anyway, hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. I was gonna do the countries a bit more serious, but it was the end, so why not? Still gotta edit it. So hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something, and yeah, I don't know, we could still do last, but I gotta finish on Sunday because I'm gonna start Austria-Hungary Monday. So we'll see how it runs. I think we have Whip Monday this Monday actually, so who knows, might actually be 2 videos or something just to compensate. But yeah, it should run smoothly from there. Every off day will be a great video. I will try and do 2 videos on an off day, even if I got to do like 2 on Wednesday, and if anything post out 1, because you see your boy be posting at like after 11 o'clock. So hopefully if I do get like 2 on a Wednesday or something, or actually wake up on time, I should be able to be going. But anyway, before the noise gets too noisy, hope you enjoyed, hope you learned something. And yeah, I'd rather do the rifles before LAST because I could always go back to tanks and ships. So yeah, later, learn something.